Hi again. Okay, this video I'm going to show you the second example of factoring a trinomial. Like a last video, I mentioned about trinomial already. That is a polynomial that has three terms, right? So the first term we call the leading term, which is x squared for this example, and the middle term is negative 6x, and the last term is plus 8. Okay, for this example, since the leading coefficient of the leading term is 1, so we can use the same technique as the last example. We look at the last term, which is plus 8, and we find all pairs of the two numbers whose product of plus 8. What do we have? Okay, I'm going to write down them here. So this column I call product. Okay, plus 8, you would have 1 and 8, right? 1 times 8 is plus 8, and also negative 1 and negative 8, because negative 1 times negative 8 is plus 8, right? And the next pair that come up in my mind is 2 and 4, right? 2 times 4 is plus 8, and also negative 2 times negative 4, which is plus 8, right? Okay, and next I'm going to write the second column. I call it sum. For the sum column, what do I do for the sum column? I add the two numbers that whose product is plus 8 that we list in the first column, right? So the first one would be 1 plus 8, which is 9, and the second one would be negative 1 plus negative 8, which is negative 9. 2 plus 4 is 6, right? Sum is a plus, right? So negative 2 plus negative 4 is negative 6, right? So the next step is I look at the middle term, the x term, and I look at the number in front of the x, including the sign, which is negative 6. And next we go back to the last column, the sum column, and we find the negative 6, which is over here, right? And next what we do, we write down the factors or the parentheses like this. We write the x inside for each one like this, right? And we go back to where I circled the number, which is negative 6, and we find the numbers that gave the sum of negative 6. So the first one is negative 2, and the second one is negative 4. Like I said earlier in the last video, is that you can put negative 4 over here first, that's fine, and this one is negative 2, right? Don't forget to bring the sign with them, right? Because the signs for this example, they are negative, so you have to bring the negative with the numbers too. And now, like the last example, you can either trust your result, or you can check them to see if you get it right. If you got it right, so just multiply them through. So first, you multiply x to x, that gives you x squared, right? So next you keep this x and multiply the second one of the second parenthesis, which is negative 2, that gives you negative 2x. And next we multiply negative 4 to the x and give you minus 4x, right? And then the last one is negative 4 times negative 2 gives you plus 8. And these two are like terms. They have the same x with the same exponent, so they are considered as like terms. So you can combine the coefficients, the coefficients or the constant in front of them. So this one is negative 2, this one is negative 4, that gives you negative 6 and x, and the leading term is x squared, and the last term is plus 8. And you see that you got it right. So this one is another example of a trinomial that have a negative sign in the middle term. And let's see another example. Let's see what I have here. Okay, this example, let's see if I have all terms negative sign. X squared minus x minus 12. And keep in mind that this technique works for only when the coefficient of the x squared term is 1. Okay, so what we do, we look at the last term, which is negative 12, and we list all pairs of integers whose product is negative 12. Maybe you can write it over here next to them and say this one is for the product. Okay, we list all pairs of integers whose product is negative 12. We can come up with 1 and 12 first. Okay, for this example, be careful. We are looking for the products of the two numbers that gives negative 12. Don't forget the minus sign. You have to take the minus sign with the number. So when you start with the 1, the next one would be negative 12, because the product have to be negative 12, right? Sign does matter for this example. Okay, now the second column would be the sum, right? So I will write it later. So the next pair would be negative 1 and 12. For this example, sign does matter, that like I said, right? Because negative 1 and 12 and 1 and 12 are not the same thing, because when the product is the same thing, but the sum is not, right? Because you have to find the correct numbers, the correct product. So be careful for this type of example. So next would be 12, right? You can come up with 2 and 6 and 4 and 3, something like that first, and then you have to give the sign to one of each, right? The number, I mean, give the negative sign. So next one be like a 2 and negative 6, negative 2 and positive 6. Okay, so 2 times negative 6 is negative 12, and negative 2 times 6 is also negative 12. Next would be 3 and 4, right? So you have to give the minus sign to one of each, right? So we have 4 first, and the next one would be negative 3. If you have negative first, like a negative 4, and the second one have to be a positive 3. Okay, the product of negative 12, right? Now that's it, right? And next we find the sum of the pairs. So I will write it next to the product here. So the sum of the two numbers for the first pair gives you negative 11, right? And negative 1 and 12, the sum is 11. You see, sign does matter for this example, because the sum are not the same for the two pairs. And the next one, 2 and negative 6, you'd have this one is negative 4, right? And this one, the sum would be 4. And 4 and negative 3, when you add them together, the sum would be 1. And the sum of the last choice or option would be negative 1. And now, like the last example, the technique is the same thing. You go back to the original trinomial and find the middle term or the x term. There is nothing there in front of the x. Actually, there is a number which is 1, right? We don't have to write 1 times x. but you have to know that there is 1 over there, right? And also there is minus sign in front of x, so it means the coefficient of the x term here is -1, right? So now it means you have the number in your mind right now is -1, right? Because the coefficient of the x is -1. Now what you do next, you go back to the last column, the sum column, right? So we go back here to the last column or the sum column, and we find what? -1, right? -1 is over here. Okay, you found it? That means you found the factors, right? And what you do? Okay, again, you write down the 2 parentheses, and you write the x inside for each, and then you take one of each inside for each, right? For this one, if this one goes here and this one have to go to another one, so now you have this one is -4 and this one is +3, right? And again, to check your answer, you multiply them back, right? You multiply these two together first, that gives you x squared, and next you keep the x, okay, and multiply the second one, that gives you plus 3x. And next we multiply, because this one is done already, right? So we move to the next one, and also keep in mind that you have negative sign in front of the 4. You take the -4 times x, that gives you -4x. And then you keep negative with the 4 times the second one, right? -4x, and the -4 times +3 gives you -12. And the result is you have x squared and plus 3x minus 4x. They are like terms again, right? And the constants, you just combine the constants right in front of the x. So you have +3 and -4, so that gives you -1x, but you don't have to write 1, right? Just write -x. And the last one is -12. And then go back to your original polynomial or trinomial and see if it's the same thing. It is, right? X squared minus x minus 12. And we found the factors. And that's it. Okay, thank you for watching. Next video will be maybe like I give you more examples and for this case, and see if we can make another video for like a more complex example. Thank you.